So I'm going to go out here and indicate that. So if I was to choose to pay attention to locations that surround this place on the z-axis or this place along the current, then I have a field line here that has a very strong magnetism of various directions. So it's very, very strong along that circle, cycling around the current. And if I check this circle, so this circle is of the same radius as the previous problem. So all along this circle, I actually have the same set of magnetisms or magnetic fields that I have over here. And if I check this even bigger circle, you can see that I'm going to have a somewhat weaker magnetism way out here at the further away place, but the directions are very similar to the directions of the fields associated with the stronger ones. And then I can draw a bigger circle or a really big circle. So the bigger and bigger the radius is, the weaker and weaker the magnetism. So this is the way that you understand the magnetic field of a single long straight wire. It's worth noticing. So these arrows, they're cycling like this around the z-axis here. So I'm trying to depict that with these little arrows. On the bottom side, they're headed inwards. So if I could draw it, kind of looks like the back side of a little cone or something, an arrow tip. Here's somebody's eyeball, and they are staring down the z-axis. That is, the current is aimed at their eyeball. A shorthand is to say that for this eyeball here that's staring that way, the current is headed out of the page, and the magnetic field cycles, if you imagine, to this person, this current, or I mean, this field cycles in this sense. That's the counterclockwise sense. So the magnetic field lines, they cycle in the counterclockwise. This is the field lines B. And then if you were to imagine the point of view of a person such that if they were looking down the current is headed away from them. Away from them looks like this. So this is, the current is into the page. They're watching, so this person's point of view is just like the point of view of looking at a clock. So the field lines run in the opposite sense. So running in a clockwise sense looks like this. So that person sees a current headed away and sees a clockwise sense of field. This person sees the current headed towards. They see a counterclockwise sense of field. The field does get weaker and weaker as you imagine going and checking at places further and further away from the axis of the current. All right, so the next thing we're going to discuss is, so we're going to imagine lots of wires. So this is the picture of just, it's the field of one long straight wire. So let's study what is the net field of many long straight wires that are parallel and anti-parallel. So what I mean by this is, for example, what if I have a bunch of wires? So these are all, this is 4 wires. This is, and this wire carries a current headed downwards. Let's say that's I1. And then this current heads upwards. This is I2. And let's say this one is also upwards, I3. and this one is also upwards, just for the hell of it. So we've got 3 ups and 1 down. This is I4. And yeah, so not only do they have possibly anti-parallel relationships in their current flow directions, it could be that I1 is 1 amp and I2 is 55 amps. You know, they can all have different amounts of current. But not only that, they don't need to be evenly spaced. Like, I could put a current over here called I5 that is also headed downwards, and it's really, really far away from these other wires. Now, each of the wires can be thought of in this kind of a picture. So this could be, say, current number 1, and this is the field that cycles current number 1. Number 1 is down, and you could imagine that the magnetic field that is around this wire here has this shape. And then current number 2, instead of, in this, current number 2 is instead oriented this way. Current number 3 is oriented this way. Current number 4 is oriented this way. Current number 5 is oriented down instead. So I could imagine that these 5 wires have 5 magnetic fields all mixing up with each other. And if the goal is to figure out what is the net field of many wires, then we need to know how do magnetic fields combine. And the answer is, what they do is they do the very simplest thing that anybody could come up with, and it turns out that nature essentially does this. It's called superposition. That is, the net magnetic field anywhere, so let's say at P. So let me pick a place P. So here is a place P, and I want to know what is the magnetic field here. I could have checked over here, or in between the wires over here, or on the left side. Doesn't really matter. But what is the net field at P? It is equal to the sum over all the wires, and the wires seem to be labeled by index I. So I'm going to say it's the magnetic field at P due to wire I, and I equals 1 all the way up to 5. In this case, I've got 5 wires and 1 place P, and I am adding together vectors. It is a vector summation. So this is the rule. The net magnetic field is just the summation of all the separate magnetic fields due to the separate wires. You can see that this sum is a so-called discrete sum. And the idea is, this is discrete because when I list out the terms that I'm going to add together, there are 5 discrete terms. But I'd like you to imagine, actually, we're going to worry about the situation that the net magnetic field is not a discrete sum, but is in fact an integral or a continuous sum over really small contributions, small individual contributions. There's just an infinite number of them. And the infinite sum of infinitesimal amounts of magnetic field, which are vectors, are going to add up to our macroscopic vector, the net magnetic field somewhere. So this is the program that you need to figure out how to do.